So yeah, I'm the next speaker. My name is, to those of you who missed it, Arturs. Artur also work as a support engineer, trainer, consultant at Zabbix, same as my colleague Edgar's over there. And the name of my presentation is actually quite elaborated and complex and long, but the presentation itself is about how simple integrations are. So those kind of things are contradicting one another. So integrating Zabbix with alerting and ITSM systems the easy way. So let's first off talk about some basic things. Let's see how this clicker works first. Does it work? Yeah, it does. Yeah. So of course, since this is a Zabbix meetup, no one here has any doubt. Zabbix is the best monitoring system out there. Many different, yeah, let's have a round of applause for Zabbix. Woo! We support tons of different monitoring approaches. Zabbix can be used in tons of different infrastructures, and as we evolve, we keep on adding those things on top of each other. Agent, agentless, SNMP nowadays, Prometheus, pre-processing supported out of the box, etc., etc. But what do we do once the data is collected? We have to react to it in some way, hopefully. Hopefully, we don't just do, as I mentioned in my example a couple of presentations back, that our notifications just go to recycle bin or something. Hopefully, we actually react, we get properly notified, and we do something to prevent the issue or maybe even remediate it automatically. So let's just, before I move on to our different media types and ways we can react, let's reiterate the whole logic within Zabbix. So first we have a host with items on it, items that collect data from our data sources. Then based on those items, we define triggers, our problem thresholds, problem definitions. Triggers create events in cases of problems. We have our problem events. And then based on those problem events, we have actions with conditions. And if those conditions are evaluated logically as true, then we execute our operations. And operations actually is where things get done, where we receive an email maybe, an SMS, maybe use some kind of a third-party integration to send a message via Skype, Slack, whatever else, a help desk ticket also, or maybe we execute a script, restart a service, restart a server, restart the application, etc. So before we move on to webhooks and just properly dive deep into webhooks, and this presentation will be about webhooks, let's just go through media types. First, we have 4 of them currently. We have email, SMS, script, and as of 4.4, webhooks. There have been others, depending on how we partnered with different solutions historically, but these are the core ones. These haven't changed throughout the years. We've only added webhooks, and this will be a new, strong media type that we can use in the future. So, with email, of course, we can react to events by notifying our team members via email. Nice thing about this is, as of 4.2, the messages can either be plain text or HTML. So that's really nice. That's a feature that a lot of people have been requesting, so you can format your email nicely with HTML tags, make it real pretty, simple for your users to understand, maybe make it interactive, etc. Of course, with this, you have to configure SMTP parameters. That just makes sense. You cannot expect, for your email configuration parameters to be obtained just automatically. And as for other media types, you have to create media for your individual users. And then you have to test it. How do we do testing in Zabbix? Do we maybe create a trapper item, and then send a trap to it via Zabbix sender for testing purposes? That was the legacy way, but that's not really elegant, and I think you can agree with me on that. That's kind of, you can maybe forget to disable that trapper item at some point, and that's just not the way to do it. And that's why we are not simulating problem anymore. Since 4.2, we have a nice test button where we can actually test our media type and see if we can get it working. So to all of you who are still on version 4.0, feel free to upgrade to 4.4 or 5.0 in the future. And over here, we can see the small test button over here in the corner. This is what we added. You click on it and your media type gets tested. No need to simulate the problem anymore. Next up, we have our next media type, which is SMS. Really simple to configure. We can see there are only 2 fields over here, not much to it. We do require a GSM modem attached. We have in our documentation some example models that have been thoroughly tested, provided for you guys. So you can use those freely. The configuration can be a bit more complex in cases if you have virtualized environments. You have VMs and then maybe the GSM modems attached somewhere to our physical, hosts, and we have to kind of figure out how can we access it via our VM. So that can complicate things a little bit. And then, of course, we have to create a media type, same as with email. And next up, alert scripts. So this is the legacy way of how we did our integrations, what our community, for example, resources, community integrations on Zabbix Share were based on. Those of you who have done this, either create your own custom integrations or use the community provided ones, you should be very familiar with this. So we use this to integrate Zabbix with third-party systems. For example, Slack. We are passing macros to our script. Can be built-in macros, can be user macros. And our script can be written in any language. I gave actually these slides to Edgar, who is, I don't know where he is right now, but whatever. And he went through these slides and he said, any language? Really? What about PowerShell? Yeah, okay. We're talking Linux here. Sure, not PowerShell, but any language on your Unix-like machine. So yeah, anything but PowerShell pretty much. And we have tons of examples available on Zabbix Share, integration section, etc. You can take a look at. Probably some of you, maybe we have some members over here in the hall present that have developed their own integrations and shared them. Can you raise your hands? Has anyone created a community integration? Oh, there we go. We have one. Yeah, 2. Yeah, 3. There we go, of course. So as you can see, we have some members that have done this over here, community members that have done this, shared with you guys, and a lot of us are probably using them. And that was pretty much it up until 4.0 and a bit later. So we fully expected for you guys to use community-provided resources. We fully expected for our community members to keep them updated, keep them well documented, keep them going. And yeah, we put them on Zabbix Share, tried to sort the most popular ones. Of course, we had some of our dev team also do those integrations, create them for you, but they kind of did it of their own accord. It was still unofficial. It was some people from development or support team just doing it on their own free time. So the question stands. We have our community integrations, but how can we provide out-of-the-box integrations for you? You've been asking for this pretty much probably since Zabbix came out, since version 1 point something, and we've been thinking about how to do this. So we took a couple of steps to provide this. First, in 4.2, we implemented JavaScript pre-processing support. JavaScript is nice. You can do a lot with pre-processing that data. I talked about this during the summit. The presentation is still available if you're interested in it. But yeah, that's just pre-processing. Actually, this was just the first step when it comes to a larger plan, how to do things with JavaScript. We use JavaScript also to create our new media type, Webhooks. We use JavaScript to integrate Zabbix out of the box with many third-party applications. Over here on the screen, you can see a list of them. We've been churning them out pretty rapidly. We have a whole separate team called integrations team. They're working on this. So as of 4.4.4, we had Mattermost, Opsgenie, and Pushover integration out of the box. And we'll talk about how we made it that they're supported out of the box. 4.4.5, PagerDuty Slack. 4.4.6, Discord, but that's pretty much copy-paste from Slack. They're like really, really similar. And these are pretty much backwards compatible with version 4.4. So you can use the Discord integration on 4.4.0, no problem, and then you can use it in the future with 5.0. These will be supported and up to date, and there are more to come. Maybe there are actually some new ones created at the time of this presentation. I'm not sure, haven't followed what's been done in the last couple of days. So let's talk about webhooks. How do they work? Pretty similar to alert script when it comes to configuration. We select the media type webhook. We pass the event-related parameters. This is usually documented and predefined in the out-of-the-box integration itself. So here we can see that we are passing, for example, the bot token. We are passing a couple of built-in macros, event tags, event names, severities, etc., to our integration. Then let's move on to the most important part. Actually, let me go back. This here pretty much isn't everything that you see in the webhook. The most important part is this. You will see a JavaScript section, and you open it up, and this is where the magic happens. This is the JavaScript that our integration team actually writes for you. We don't expect you to keep up with this. We don't expect you to need to modify this. This will work out of the box, and that's the whole point of it. Of course, if you wish, you can always crack it open, tweak it, change it around, etc. But we don't expect you to do this at all. So you don't have to write a script. If you open our GitHub page, you can take a look at the existing media types. Over here, you can see we have an XML file, which is importable. You can import it. For our Slack integration, there's a README with screenshots, with step-by-step instructions, also from the Slack side, how to integrate it, how to get the bot token, how to prepare your Slack instance. This is just an example with Slack that I'm using because it's quite simple. And yeah, you can get this going. If you install 4.4.4, for example, or 4.4.5 out of the box, just a fresh instance, these on the right side will be provided out of the box. You don't need to import anything. They'll be there. But I understand most of you have instances already going on in your environment, so you will need to download that XML file, plug it in, import it, and just point it towards your third-party system, provide the bot token, and that's it. The import screen hasn't changed much. Pretty much looks just as the old one. We just have new section over there. We have a media type that you can either create new media type with importing or update an existing one. And then copy your API token, and that should pretty much be it. Another thing we implemented in 5.0, you can now specify, similar to the HTTP agent item, which has already had this feature, you can specify the HTTP proxy in your media type. So you don't need to configure it on the OS level globally or do any other customization outside of Zabbix. You can specify your HTTP proxy in the media type configuration. So that's quite nice. So webhooks essentially try to provide a somewhat two-way-ish integration. How? By using tags. That's another function that we've been kind of improving. Wolfgang kind of briefly touched upon how we've improved it, how we've added in some additional tags in some additional places in 4.2 and 4.4. And this is what we use for somewhat two-way integration. For example, if you click on the message link tab, you will see a link to your Slack instance that you can copy, or not only copy, you can also make it clickable. I'll talk about it in a second. And navigate to your Slack instance. So it's somewhat two-way-ish. Or if you don't want to copy it, this is how you can make it clickable. You tick the include event menu entry checkbox, provide the tag which will contain the link. If you wish, you can provide a description, and voila, you click on the problem, and you can just open it in Slack. It will navigate to your Slack instance, the correct channel, and everything. So this is how we provide two-way integration out of the box. Like I said, it's semi-two-way, but it's pretty good for an out-of-the-box functionality. How are tag values obtained? So the API call returns the tag values. It should return them in JSON. We can process them via our JavaScript. Over here, if we crack open the Slack integration, we can see that the JavaScript actually has function to assign values to those tags internally on the script level. So that's how that's done. And then they return to Zabbix, and you can populate your tags with those values. So now let's compare. I've talked enough about webhooks. I've briefly touched upon legacy approaches. But oftentimes, of course, a large enough part of our community doesn't use these integrations, maybe simply because they're too complicated. You know, they don't want to mess around with some OS level configuration, downloading additional packages, things like that. If you're not, you know, a hardcore Linux guy, those things can be somewhat scary. So let's just compare. Let me show you how complex and what kind of problems you could have encountered with legacy approach and how simple it is now. So as an example, we will use a featured and a popular on Zabbix share integration, also with Slack, HipChat, and PagerDuty. It's a 3-in-1 provided by a very prominent member of our community. It's pretty well documented, and it uses alert script written in Perl. So let's do a step-by-step setup of it. So first, already, this is outside of Zabbix. We have to install required modules and dependencies. So we have to open our terminal window and do it. We need to make sure that a couple of dependencies, in this case, LWP and JSON access modules are installed. Over here, I'm using Yum on my CentOS 7 instance to install them. And on CentOS 7, this was successful, no problem at all. I did it, pretty simple copy-paste from documentation. But that's on CentOS 7. On other OSs I encountered, on CentOS 8, for example, I encountered some dependency issues. So then I have to download the tar file provided, the archive provided in the GitHub, Git page of the integration and set it up. And then I have to run some additional commands. And if I'm not familiar with, Linux, with maybe compiling things, etc., God knows what they do. Make test, make install. What's that? Why do I need to do this? And then I also need to specify some kind of directory of some location of some parameter towards the same path as my alert scripts. What's going on over here? So I have to kind of pay attention to a couple of things over here. I have to pay attention to my alert scripts parameter on the Zabbix server config. I have to point the script towards the location of the script itself, not the script, but the alert script. And it can be kind of messy. If I mess up one of these, my integration won't work, and I probably won't be able to figure out why for a while. Once that is done, this is where we move to Slack itself. Yes, this won't be different for webhooks or legacy approaches in any way. We have to create a new application in the Slack itself, both for this and for webhooks. Then I have to create a bot user. Once that is done, I have to install the app into my workspace over here. Slack has this procedure well documented, but like I said, these screenshots are actually from our integrations page. So this is well documented on our side also how to do it with webhooks. Then I have to obtain my API token and copy it into the media type over there. That's the fourth parameter from the top, the API token. All right, create a new media type for our users. Okay, this is, you should be familiar with this. My media for my user, Monday to Sunday from midnight to midnight. Yep, I'm not getting any sleep this week, I guess, for triggers of all severities. All right. Then I have to create an action that will execute an operation, Slack notification, send notification via Slack immediately. And then I'll receive it. This screenshot has been taken from the page, from the GitHub page of the integration. That's why it's in Russian. So maybe that can be another kind of a problem with the documentation itself. Sometimes there are language kind of limitations. So maybe if something is not clear on the screenshot to our community members that don't speak Russian, that's what can happen with those unofficial community provided documentations. Sometimes they have tons of languages supported. Sometimes it's just a single one. So let's just summarize the additional tasks that I had to do outside of Zabbix to get this going. I had to download and configure the script. I had to install some custom modules, packages, and I had to test the integration manually. And regarding the compatibility issues, these are a couple of points regarding it. So first off, this is supported only on Zabbix 3 point something. So maybe it'll work on 4 point versions or even 5 point something versions, or maybe you'll have to tweak it on your own. So it just happens sometimes. Maybe a community member, highly doubtful, but sometimes maybe they lose interest in Zabbix. Like I said, highly doubtful, never happens. But maybe let's just kind of, I'll humor the theory. Or maybe he just doesn't have the time, at this point to develop it further. So it's pretty much dropped. And also, I tried setting this up on CentOS 8, just for the sake of, experience. And I did encounter some dependency issues. Some of these packages were not available. So once again, I had to do some additional troubleshooting with this to get it going, which can take me a couple of hours. So that's a lot of extra time. Now let's look at webhooks. So yes, I create my Slack application, Slack bot. I create my API token, import the application into my workspace. That's on the Slack side. Then I have to populate the Zabbix URL with the URL of my instance, so I can navigate from Slack to my Zabbix instance via a single click. Once again, could be optional. You can just break it and not use it. I import the media type or do not import it if I've installed 4.4 or higher version, just fresh from scratch. Then I set the bot token to the previously obtained bot token, create a media type for the user, and I'm done. I have my alerts over here. The link up top is clickable. It will navigate to my Zabbix instance, and that's it. Notice that I didn't do any additional module setup, any additional scripting, or anything like that outside of Zabbix. And that's the whole point, to make these centralized, to make these plug and play pretty much. And like I said, we will keep on developing these. We will keep on supporting these. I already know that there are some bug reports and feature requests regarding them, but our integration team is on it, and most of them are already fixed. So we kind of rapidly react to these breaking due to maybe some changes from the system, the third-party system side, or maybe some changes because we haven't tested it on maybe some fresh release of your distribution of choice, your OS distribution of choice. But we will test it quite rapidly and fix it and make it work. Remember that the JavaScript, it was contained in the integration in the XML file when I imported it. And this is quite simple to do even with users who are maybe not that well familiar with, Linux, Unix-like systems, things like that. It's self-contained within Zabbix. It's very clickable. It's very, next, import, copy, paste the bot token, done. And yes, this is the key point. No need to execute any commands on the OS level. Everything is within Zabbix. That's pretty much it for my presentation. I hope that you guys will try, to those of you who weren't aware of this, we'll try and set up at least a test instance of 4.4 and see how these work out of the box, and they work nicely. I myself wasn't expecting for them to work that nicely. I was like, okay, I'm gonna prepare this presentation, and I'm probably gonna encounter some bugs. Like this won't go easy. Actually, this went pretty easy. I imported it, copied the bot token, populated the URL, and it worked. It's magic. It's literal magic. So yeah, thanks to our integrations team, thanks to our developers and testers and support guys for ensuring that this works. Yeah, question time. Yes?
Thank you for the presentation. Is there a possibility to create a media type for Microsoft Teams?
For Microsoft what?
Microsoft Teams.
So you will have to, if there is no feature request for it, you will have to create a new feature request. Our integrations team will have to evaluate it. I'm not sure how exposed Teams is to Teams API and so on to communication, but I think it's probably definitely quite requested. You're probably not the only one who imagined this. So this is a question for our integrations team. And I think this is something that we will at least consider and hopefully implement eventually.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'm getting off easy, looks like. In that case, thank you.